the strongest land mammal in North America. Bears come in at number 10 because they love working out in the wilderness. After all, who needs a gym when there are 300-pound boulders lying around? But black bears don't roll rocks just to improve their physique. They're more interested in the bugs under the boulders than working out the muscles on their shoulders. While looking for food keeps bears in peak physical condition, we've found other ways to build up our strength. So why does working out work? The human body has more than 650 different muscles. They range in size from the massive gluteus maximus to a muscle just 1/10 the size of a flea. It's found in your ear and protects your eardrum from loud noises. And no matter how much you exercise, you'll never get more muscles. The ones you've got will just get bigger. But the only way we could be as big and strong as a bear was if we grew to be 10 feet tall and weighed around 1,200 pounds. And since half of a bear's body weight is pure muscle, it's no wonder bears are so much stronger than us. And like any super athlete, all those muscles use an awful lot of energy, which is why bears spend so much time looking for food. The summer salmon run provides plenty of bodybuilding protein, but it also brings fierce competition for the best fishing spots. Grizzly bears are so strong that one swat from their massive paws could break your back. So it's no wonder that most people keep their distance, no matter how much they're provoked. The only way you could safely get up close and personal with a grizzly would be to wear a serious suit of armor. Just like the one built by Canadian mountain man Troy Hurtubise.
Now, if he's got the same power, which I doubt it, even the doctors of physics at McMaster University, they said that's if you're going to simulate the SWAT of a grizzly bear, you've got to go with a 300-400 pound log, 40 feet elevated. They did the PSI, the G-force. They said the grizzly SWAT will not supersede that. So I'm saying even if that is what a grizzly can do to me, the only difference is he might be able to do that 2 or 3 times consecutively.
I'm ready.
Here it comes. Troy's been developing this suit for 10 painful years. You okay? Now, Troy's convinced the armor's tough enough to withstand even the strongest grizzly. The hard part will be finding a bear brave enough to go anywhere near him. While the bear may be stronger than your average Canadian, our next contender can even out-muscle a grizzly.
Number 9.
You have to be tough to live on these rocky shores. At number 9 in the countdown is an animal so strong that we call it the mussel. This young shellfish will need all its strength just to find a foothold on the rocks. Fighting against the waves, it uses its muscular foot to hold on tight. But it's not just the mussel's muscle that makes it extreme. Adele Hyman from the Aquarium of New Zealand knows that as these shellfish get older, they grow the strongest beards in the world. It seems that, just like Samson, the secret of the mussel's strength is in its hair.
These little threads that we can see coming off the mussel here, they're called byssus or byssal threads. And they're ultra strong. They're kind of like our hair, made of amino acids. And the mussel places them on the rock with a little foot that it's got inside it, and it glues them there tight and strong. That's why when you go to collect mussels and you pull them off the rock, they're stuck on really tight.
Imagine if we could produce glue from our feet. We'd find ourselves in a really sticky situation. Unlike us, mussels want to stick around forever. So it's no wonder these shellfish have moved out of the seafood buffet and into the laboratory.
The shipping industry is really interested in this glue that the mussels can produce, because even the best glues that we produce at the moment aren't as strong as this mussel glue. They break down after a short time in salt water, whereas this mussel glue lasts a lot longer.
Imagine what we could stick together with a little mussel superglue. No wonder researchers are excited about the potential of muscle power. Unfortunately, there's a catch. Scientists say you'll need to grind up over 280,000 mussels just to make 1 ounce of glue. And at nearly $50,000 per pound, don't expect to see it on the shelf at your supermarket anytime soon. This shellfish may be the highest paid mussel on the planet, but it's still only number 9 in our extreme countdown.
Number 8.
At number 8 in our countdown of extreme strength is a monster that's powered its way into movie immortality. King Kong may have been the greatest ape in the world, but the animal that inspired the movie is far from monstrous. At number 8 in the countdown is the gorilla. We're fascinated with gorillas because we're remarkably similar, with one notable exception. Gorillas are much, much stronger. Not even the strongest humans on the planet can compare to the power of the gorilla. Imagine if you were a weightlifter at the Olympic Games. To compete for the gold medal, you'd have to be able to lift over 550 pounds. But what if you were as strong as a gorilla? You'd easily set a new world record by lifting 2 family cars. That's over 4,600 pounds. The real heavyweight champion of a gorilla troop is the silverback. This male is so big and so strong that he dominates the rest of the family group. No wonder all the young males dream of one day finding enough gray fur on their back to become the boss of their own troop. But until then, they're happy trailing after their hero like little gorilla groupies. And that's because nothing's more impressive than a silverback throwing his weight around. Gorilla fights are short and to the point. Unlike the battles of some human gorillas. For back in 1984, two of the world's strongest men ended up fighting for the title in court. Bill Kazmaier from Alabama lifted logs, Playboy bunnies, and said he was the strongest man on earth. But then, so did John Wooten of Massachusetts, and he hauled trains, hoisted trucks, and held back racing cars.
I am simply the world's strongest man.
I am the world's strongest man.
As the winner of the World's Strongest Man competition, Kazmaier was so upset by his rival that he took him to court. Wooten responded by challenging Kazmaier to settle the dispute out of court. Kazmaier refused, claiming that Wooten's stunts were just tricks. In the end, the judge flexed his own judicial muscle and threw the case out of court. Although both men claimed victory, the fans were in no doubt.
Which is the world's strongest man?
Kazmaier.
Sometimes even the strongest creatures have to learn to take a fall. Gorillas may be more than a match for the strongest men in the world, but they're still only number 8 in the countdown.
Number 7.
Floating into number 7 in our countdown of extreme strength is the strongest animal in the Amazon. There's only one creature out here with enough muscle to make our countdown, and it's not the Cayman crocodile. The anaconda is number 7 in the countdown because it's strong enough to squeeze the life out of anything. But how can a snake kill a croc? To find out, you just have to ask Peter Taylor from the St. Louis Zoo.
Snakes asphyxiate their prey when they're using constriction as a method by biting, using the neck as the first coil, and several of the mid-body coils, which have a lot of power, and just tightening up, just as the snake is doing with some effect right now on my arm. You can see there's very little space there. And if I had a lung inside that arm, I would not have room to breathe, and that would be a big problem for me or for a small prey item. So it's a muscular tightening of the coils and a rapid taking up of the slack in between. A little like this.
All that muscle can be deadly. But to really get to grips with muscles is no easy task. Every movement we make requires a vast network of nerves to connect our brain to the muscle fibers. That's because even the simplest task requires the coordination of many muscles. You may not know it, but you're contracting more than 200 muscles just to walk. The anaconda also has a big job coordinating its muscles. After all, weighing more than 3 men, this is the heaviest snake in the world, and much of that weight is pure muscle. No wonder catching animals even the size of a deer is no problem. Luckily for the deer, the anaconda is built for strength, not speed. So instead of chasing its prey, this snake lurks in the murky shallows, just waiting for an opportunity to wrap its lunch in a deadly embrace.
Number 6.
These are some of the strongest feet on Earth. They're so powerful, they can crush bone. These are the feet of the ultimate winged predator, the eagle. It's number 6 in the countdown, because you have to be strong if you want to pluck food out of the rainforest. And on the menu today is monkey a la canopy. For this African crowned eagle, it's time for some takeout. Monkeys think they're safe because they're hiding inside the canopy. But this eagle has short wings, designed to let it maneuver through the branches. Catching the monkey's one thing, but carrying it is something beyond even our most powerful cargo planes. This Starlifter is one of the largest freight planes on Earth. It can carry up to 95,000 pounds. That's a lot of monkeys. But it's still only lifting about 2/3 of its operating weight. The eagle is number 6 in the countdown because it can carry up to 4 times its own weight. While the eagle's massive muscles make it a super bird, sometimes even the most ordinary people can possess superhuman strength. Some superheroes are made not by radioactivity, spinach, or by the wearing of underwear over the trousers. Sometimes ordinary citizens can save the day thanks to adrenaline. In a crisis, our body calls on our very own emergency response center, the adrenal glands. They produce hormones like adrenaline that sends the body into action mode. And this is how sometimes people can get superhuman strength. But even some eagles need help from a superhero. These are Steller Sea Eagle chicks. To survive, they're going to have to out-muscle the competition. And that includes their sibling. High in the Arctic Circle, their parents can only feed one chick. So the weaker of the two will be bullied to death. No wonder eagles are the strongest birds in the world. Right from the moment they hatch, they discover that only the strong survive.
Number 5.
The next contender in our countdown of extreme strength proves that not all traffic is powered by combustion engines. For in Asia, road hogs are actually road cows. Pulling in to number 5 is the ox, the big rig of the animal world. It's a green machine because it runs all day on nothing but hay. For 6,000 years, the ox has helped us carry heavy loads. But in the wild, their cousins have a different use for their massive strength. These raging bulls are fighting for females. For when push comes to shove, only the strongest male will take home the herd. Our ancestors were obviously impressed by the strength of oxen, which is why they became the farm vehicle of choice. Even today, 4 out of every 10 cattle in the world are kept as draft animals. No wonder some people try to be as strong as an ox. While these human oxen may be strong, just like a wild bull, it pays not to make them see red.
Number 4.
These are the cutest animals in the countdown. Baby Bengal tigers are number 4 in the countdown because when they grow up, they'll become the biggest and strongest cats in the world. A fully grown tiger can leap over 20 feet and stand 10 feet tall. But even this big baby retains a fondness for milk. Take a close look at a tiger, and you can clearly see the bulging muscles that became an inspiration for one of the world's most famous muscle men. Charles Atlas was once a 97-pound weakling. But then, after watching big cats at the local zoo, he developed a series of exercises based on dynamic tension. He transformed not only his body, but his wallet, because he sold his plan to millions, and so became the grandfather of the modern fitness industry. In the U.S. alone, people spend $10 billion a year exercising. Firmer butts and stronger abs may be only a credit card number away, but you could never buy muscles like a tiger. It's hard to imagine just how strong the tiger really is when you see it at rest. Those enormous muscles in the paws and jaws seem harmless when used against pesky flies. But when the tiger is hungry, all that power is focused into one explosive charge. A single bite is strong enough to sever the spinal cord. And then the tiger uses its enormous strength to drag its meal to a safe spot. How would you like to be strong enough to lift a domestic cow over a 6-foot-high wall? No wonder we're scared of tigers. We're no match for the tiger's enormous speed and strength. But luckily for us, tigers spend more time sleeping than hunting. Perhaps they're exhausted from exercising using Mr. Atlas's dynamic tension.
Number 3.
The next contender in our countdown of extreme strength can be found in tropical forests around the world. You just have to take a close look at the leaves to find signs of weightlifters at work. Chewing its way into number 3 in the countdown is the leafcutter ant. It may be small, but it can carry slices of leaf more than 50 times its own weight. Imagine if you were as strong as an ant. If you could lift like an ant, you'd never need a tow truck. That's because every time you had engine trouble, you could simply pick up the vehicle and carry it to the mechanic. Raising 50 times your weight would be like lifting a truck weighing more than 6,500 pounds. And you'd be able to carry it an incredible 8 miles. Ants are so strong that just imagine what would happen to our world if they grew a little larger.
Let's get out of here, come on!
H.G. Wells' Empire of the Ants. For they shall inherit the earth sooner than you think.
If we're lucky, leafcutter ants will inherit the earth because they're strictly vegetarian. And it would be a world run by females because all worker ants are sisters. This is one case where females are definitely not the weaker sex. Human females, however, have muscles that are on average 20% smaller than a male's. That's because men produce more of the muscle-building hormone testosterone. But women can still be as strong as men, so long as they exercise those muscles. Everyone grows muscles if they exercise, even your grandma. Just look at Elma Beck. She's won national powerlifting titles and has broken numerous U.S. age group records. Not bad for a 75-year-old super granny. It just goes to show that anything's possible if you put your mind to it. Although not even leafcutter ants are strong enough to take on every intruder. These soldiers will fight to the death, trying to protect the most powerful ant of all. The ant queen controls the whole colony and is as big as a mouse. No workers dare step out of line with this mother. This queen rules an army so powerful that in only a few hours, it can strip all the leaves from a tree. But our next contender's so strong, it just rips the whole tree out of the ground.
Number 2.
What's big, gray, and strong enough to be number 2 in the countdown? The elephant, the strongest land mammal on the planet. When it comes to moving timber, in some societies, nothing works better. For more than 2,500 years in Asia, civilizations have been built on the back of the elephant. But it wasn't just their enormous strength that got them the job. Elephants respond to over 40 commands, most of them unspoken. Try to do that with a logging truck. Asian elephants may be smart, but they're not as strong as their African cousins. That's because African elephants are huge. How would you like to get between 2 bull elephants with a combined weight of 10 tons? Elephants are so strong that nothing stands in their way. The advantage of being so big and so strong is that nothing's brave enough to eat you. Such jumbo-sized animals could have difficulty reaching things to eat themselves if it wasn't for that amazing trunk. It's extraordinarily versatile. It's good for feeding and drinking. It can both suck and blow, sniff and feel, and even be used as a snorkel for breathing underwater. It's the most sensitive part of the elephant's body, and yet it's strong enough to lift more than 600 pounds. It takes baby elephants a couple of years to master all the tricks of a trunk, because it's incredibly complicated. Just like the human arm, the trunk is made up of 6 major muscle groups. But there are no bones inside the trunk. Instead, the muscles are subdivided into more than 100,000 separate units, which can be controlled to make the trunk as versatile as the human hand. But sometimes elephants are just too strong for their own good. The strongest locks in the world couldn't stop these burglars from breaking and entering. Bags of grain are enough incentive for an elephant to push over a building. But even this isn't enough to take the elephant to the top of our extreme countdown.
Number 1.
The most extreme power lifters in the countdown have been immortalized in museum collections all over the world. Their huge skeletons are a lasting reminder of their awesome power. But don't bother looking in the galleries, for the number 1 animal in the countdown is kept in a drawer. The strongest animal in our extreme countdown is the rhinoceros beetle. It's number 1 because, wait for weight, this is the strongest animal on the planet. People in Thailand are so amazed by the strength of the male rhino beetle that they trap a female beetle inside a special log to encourage the males to do what they do best. Bets are placed on which beetle is the strongest. The winner gets the girl, and the loser gets thrown off the log. So just how strong is the rhinoceros beetle? Some researchers have estimated that a rhino beetle can lift 800 times its own weight. Imagine if we were as strong as this armor-plated insect. That would be like us lifting a tank. All 65 tons of it. So why is the rhino beetle so strong? Well, for its size, it has far more muscles than we do. These beetles don't have bones. Their muscles are inside their skeleton. So all that armor plating means there's many more places for muscles to attach to. And so, with more muscles inside a strong skeleton, the rhinoceros beetle gets the optimal leverage needed to produce truly extreme strength. No wonder then, when it comes to strength, the rhinoceros beetle really is the most extreme. So you think you have trouble getting ready for a date? Well, for some animals, the search for true love costs much more than flowers and chocolates. We're counting down the top 10 most extreme lovers in the animal kingdom and comparing them to how humans play the dating game. Discover that love's not enough when courtship's taken to the most extreme.
Earth is a planet of extremes. Extreme places. And extreme animals. But some animals are more extreme than others. Join us as we count down to find the most unusual and the most extraordinary on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 10.
The countdown begins with perhaps the most unlovable lover in the world. The Tasmanian devil is notoriously bad-tempered. He lives alone because he'll fight any devil he meets, including a potential mate. This male sniffed out the location of a female, but he approaches her lair with extreme caution. Tasmanian devils are number 10 in the countdown because when it comes to courtship, these guys make war, not love. The Tasmanian devil really pushes the battle of the sexes to the extreme. Their courtship may be short and violent, but it's enough to establish them as a couple. Tasmanian devils are extreme lovers because they really are a match made in hell. Having won over the she-devil with his fighting spirit, the male continues to court her with love bites and licks. Unlike Tasmanian devils, humans usually take a more subtle approach to dating. But biologically speaking, there's still a battle when a man meets a woman. That's because men and women have very different needs. According to evolutionary theory, a woman is looking for the kind of man who can protect and provide for her and her children. Unfortunately, men are looking to sow their genetic seed as widely as possible, and so they're searching for mates with high reproductive potential. These conflicting evolutionary imperatives mean that sometimes men and women can look for love in all the wrong people. That's why humans and animals put so much effort into courting. By investing time and effort in courtship, it gives both males and females the chance to see if your date has what it takes to be the partner of your dreams. Few people would dream about relationships if their partner was like a Tasmanian devil. After 3 days, even the she-devil has had enough of her male chauvinist mate. The honeymoon is definitely over. Perhaps the she-devil could take a lesson from the next contender, where the girls ganged up on the guys and drove them to extinction.
Number 9.
In the deserts of Arizona, some sisters are doing it for themselves. At number 9 in the countdown are whiptail lizards. Every single one of these lizards is female. There are no males. It seems an extreme solution to the problem of finding the perfect man. But these lizards need males about as much as fish need bicycles. They're number 9 in the countdown because they don't have to waste time looking for the perfect guy. They can lay fertile eggs without the hassle of sex. Evolution may have banished the male whiptail to the great singles bar in the sky, but human males may not be far behind them. Some women and movie makers have fantasized about a world without men.
Oh, men are never coming back. Do you want to live here the rest of your life without any men at all? Wouldn't be like you. Shut up!
But the scary truth is that we all may soon be living in a world without any fertile men. In the last 30 years, human sperm counts have fallen by 50%. The creepy part is that decreased male fertility could be caused by something in the water. Sometimes our drinking water comes from rivers containing recycled sewage. We've been able to filter out all the waste, but not all the female hormones from the millions of contraceptive pills taken each day. Scientists have shown that when women take the pill, only about 20% of the female hormones in the contraceptive are used by the body. The remaining 80% are flushed out into our drinking water. Some scientists believe that this may be contributing to the drop in men's sperm count, and so making us more like whiptail lizards every day. But not even these lizards have completely forgotten about the guys in their life. They can't lay their eggs until one female gets hit by a surge of testosterone and starts acting like a male. Fortunately, the effects are temporary and wear off before she starts sitting in front of the TV, drinking beer, and watching football.
Number 8.
On the Indonesian island of Sulawesi, the next contender in our countdown of extreme courtship is the crested black macaque. These primates are number 8 in the countdown because when it comes to courtship, there's only one thing on a male's mind, and that's the female's rear end. When female macaques are in the mood for love, their buttocks get bigger, much bigger. For in the macaque mating game, size really does matter. Macaques use their bottoms as a sexual signal. When a female is in heat, her fleshy red rump fills with fluid. This is her way of standing out from the crowd so she can attract a mate. But macaques are not the only creatures to have focused on their fanning. Unlike macaques, women have gone to extreme lengths to try to reduce the size of their bottoms. But why? Some anthropologists think that, like other primates, our buttocks are a sexual signpost. It's just that, unlike macaques, we're always in the mood for love, and so our bottoms stay swollen all the time. Just think of the millions of dollars that could be saved each year if we were more like macaques. After all, if macaques went to the gym, they'd be wanting to make their butts bigger, not smaller.
Number 7.
When it comes to extreme courting in the parched lands of India, one animal really knows how to shake his tail feather. The peacock is number 7 in our countdown of extreme lovers. But before the male can strut his stuff, he's got to catch the eye of his date. He knows the best way to a peahen's heart is through her stomach, so he pretends he's found a huge pile of seeds. Having got her on the move, it's time to make some moves of his own. The peacock is number 7 because of his enormous appendage. That tail is more than 8 feet wide and contains over 200 feathers. It's an eye-catching display, but it puts a lot of pressure on the male. Sure, he may look good for the girls, but all that extra weight makes it harder to fly and easier to be caught by hungry tigers. But for the male, it's worth the risk because peahens love a bit of tail, especially those bright blue eye spots. For it seems that the more eye spots on the tail, the better the lover. Scientists have discovered that chicks sired by fathers with lots of eye spots grew faster and survived longer in the wild. But it's not only peacocks that try to dazzle females with their plumage. Human males also go to extreme lengths to attract a mate. Men may not have tails, but they do place a great deal of importance on their hair. One survey showed that almost 70% of men think that bald guys are unattractive. But there's hope for bald men. Only 30% of women felt that a lack of hair was unattractive. But there may be another reason why there's always been a market for hair restorers. Once, long hair was thought to be a source of masculine strength. Just ask Samson. Samson was the strongest man in the world until the wicked Delilah stole his mojo with a pair of scissors. While Samson discovered that strength can be hair today and gone tomorrow, the peacock has no such worries. But not even this extreme show-off can match the muscles on our next contender.
Number 6.
For some males, looking good can be hard work. Especially when your potential partner likes muscles. Lots of muscles. For the animal at number 6 in the countdown, big muscles are also a big deal. But these muscles are found at the bottom of a pond. This is a freshwater mussel. In the most bizarre courtship of the countdown, this clam is seduced by a fish. The male European bitterling makes love to the mussel. He dances around it, getting it used to his presence so that it doesn't automatically close up its shell when he gets too close. Then the fish dances to attract a female, but she's only got eyes for his muscle. If she likes the look of the fish and his shellfish, then she'll produce her exceptionally long egg-laying tube. Then both fish actually mate with the mussel. He fertilizes the eggs she's laid inside the shellfish. For these fishes, having big muscles is vital. But in human courtship, how important is it to be big and buff? Most men think that muscles are very impressive. But according to a recent study, men and women have radically different ideas about what's attractive in a mate. Scientists asked a group of men what features they thought women found most attractive on the male body. Most thought a powerful, muscular chest would be a turn-on. Others thought muscular arms would be hot. And many believed that women would focus on their private parts. But then, scientists asked a group of women the same question, and the response was overwhelming. By far, the most attractive part of a man was his bottom. Nobody really cared about muscular arms, or powerful chest and shoulders. And his unmentionables were almost unmentioned. The female bitterling's choice of the male with the biggest muscle makes perfect sense. For the shellfish is a high-security incubator, meaning that her eggs can hatch in safety. Once they're spat out, the baby bitterlings begin the search for some big muscles of their own.
Number 5.
Flying in to number 5 in the countdown of extreme lovers are cranes. These demoiselle cranes have just crossed the Himalayas to reach their breeding grounds in Europe. But flying over the highest mountains on Earth is easy compared to the moves they have to make on the ground. For demoiselle cranes take dancing to the extreme. damosels dig dancing. They dance on a date. They dance with their mate. These cranes are number 5 in the countdown because they just can't stop their dancing feet. Dance is the way to meet your partner for life, and the glue that keeps couples together year after year. But birds aren't the only animals that dance. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, people dance. But why is dancing so universally popular? Well, just like demoiselle cranes, we use dance as a way to assess potential mates. There's a theory that women like getting men on the dance floor because it gives them a chance to check out their reproductive fitness. After all, a good dancer has to be physically coordinated and strong. Just the kind of man to help you bring up your children. But one man had to dance like a bird to bring up the children of one of the rarest animals in the world. This is a young whooping crane that's being reared in captivity for release back into the North American wilderness. And this is its surrogate mother. It's actually someone dressed in a sheet, but that's to stop the chicks from thinking that they're human. With the help of a glove puppet, the surrogate parents teach the chicks how to survive in the wild. But these birds also have to learn how to dance. If they don't dance, they don't lay eggs. Cranes are number 5 in the countdown because they have to dance to stimulate their reproductive hormones. And that's why back in 1978, Dr. George Armstrong danced with an imprinted crane called Tex. Luckily, most cranes don't invite humans onto the dance floor. Although everyone has at least one uncle who dances like this.
Number 4.
Our next contender lives by himself in the floodplains of northeast India. He's famous for his bad temper. But then, life's not easy when you're a male Indian rhinoceros. He's number 4 in the countdown because it's a real struggle to find the love of his life. In addition to his bad attitude, he has worse eyesight. A male rhino is so nearsighted that he has to rely on other senses to find true love. The good news is that a rhinoceros has a sense of smell to rival a bloodhound. The bad news is that a romantic rhino has to follow a trail of urine. If a female rhino goes to the toilet a mile away, a male can sniff her out. Perhaps that's why rhinos are so grumpy. How'd you like to have to find the love of your life in the bathroom? The female rhino's as blind as the male and just as antisocial. If anything gets too close for comfort, she'll charge first and ask questions later. That means that a potential date is likely to be confronted by 800 pounds of angry armor plating. So it's no wonder that when a male rhino has sniffed out a potential mate, he approaches with extreme caution. Having finally got close enough to recognize the intruder as a potential mate, the female really plays hard to get. She'll test the male's fitness by running, and running, and running. The female can keep running for several days, all the time leading the male by his nose. But then, all kinds of animals use their nose to find a suitable mate. Even humans can sniff out the perfect partner, thanks to secrets hidden in our armpit. It seems our body odor can tell people more than just when we had our last bath. Scientists have discovered that every person has a distinctive personal smell that's related to a cluster of genes associated with our immune system. And our noses are incredibly sensitive to these subtle smells. Scientists have analyzed individual body odors and discovered that women prefer the smell of men who have different immune system genes from their own. Researchers think that by selecting a mate with a different personal odor, your offspring will have a wider variety of immune response genes and therefore greater protection against infection. But having extracted a male's essence, it's still hard to find the perfect man.
I don't smell anything. Nothing at all. Sweaty, dirty locker room. Disgusting.
Did you like it?
No, and I don't want to smell it again.
So next time you're on a date, perhaps you should free your armpits by leaving your deodorant at home and give thanks that at least you don't have to select your mate using the same odor trail laid down by the Indian rhinoceros.
Number 3.
For most animals in our countdown of extreme courtship, winter is a time to focus on survival, not sex. But with the arrival of spring, the juices start flowing, and far beneath the ground, number 3 in the countdown starts stirring. For as the sap rises, so do red-sided garter snakes. All 10,000 of them in this snake pit in Manitoba, Canada. The spring sunshine has drawn the garter snakes from their hibernation dens below the ground. The males are the first to emerge, so when a female appears, she may be outnumbered 3,000 to 1. These snakes are number 3 in the countdown because they're so desperate to find a mate that some of these sneaky serpents have found an extreme way to beat the odds. A lone female has made a run for it, but she's pursued by an entourage of smaller males. But the female's not exactly playing hard to get. She's driven the males crazy with a sexy scent she exudes from between her scales. Males usually have a different smell than females, but there's one cunning exception. This is a transvestite. It's a male that's mimicked the smell of the female, much to the delight of other males. As they near a genuine courtship gathering, the fake female breaks away, for he's not interested in the males. His cunning plan is to cause enough confusion in the courtship frenzy to distract his rivals from the real female. It's a way of increasing his chances of having his wicked way with her. But snakes are not the only creatures to use smells to cheat a little. There was a time when humans smelled. A lot. Queen Elizabeth was unusual because she took a bath every 3 months, whether she needed it or not. So, to cover up the appalling stench, Elizabethans drenched themselves in perfume. We still use perfume today, and not only to disguise bad body odor. Recent research suggests that we unconsciously select perfumes that amplify our own smell signature, the distinctive odor that reflects the makeup of our immune system. Perfumes are actually making it easier for a potential partner to sniff us out because they contain molecules that mimic the chemicals responsible for our natural body odor. It's just that sometimes these molecules come from bizarre places. This is ambergris, a hard waxy lump made in the guts of sperm whales. It washes up on beaches and, not surprisingly, it smells like whale dung. Yet ambergris contains molecules that mimic those responsible for human smell signatures, which is how it ended up inside our perfumes. Fancy a bottle of eau de sperm whale guts for your birthday? So perhaps snakes aren't so sneaky after all. At least they're happy using their own smells to track down a mate.
Number 2.
Love can be hard to find for some males in the forests of New Zealand. But nobody tries harder than the animal that's number 2 in the countdown. This clearing in the forest is actually a stage prepared by one of the world's loneliest lovers, the kakapo. This giant flightless parrot was one of the rarest birds in the world, so male kakapo on one island had a problem. How do you find one of only 6 females hidden in a forest half the size of Manhattan? The solution is to sing one of the loudest love songs of any bird on the planet. This song's at such a low frequency that you feel it more than hear it. And it's so powerful it can travel up to 3 miles. The male kakapo is number 2 in the countdown because every night for 4 months, he pumps out up to 10,000 of these booming calls, and several thousand whistles as well. But the trouble with being so rare is that no matter how hard the male tries, sometimes there are just no females around to listen. And that's when a male can get a little desperate for love. Some male kakapo have been known to make love to some very strange things, including fallen branches and a very surprised seabird. But then, when you're desperate for love, you'll try anything. Like the kakapo, some humans try singing silly love songs. However, some people use pickup lines rather than love songs to get the attention of a stranger. One group of researchers tested the efficiency of some opening lines on 60 men and 60 women. Men using the line, "I bet I can outdrink you," were nearly 60% less successful than those using, I'm kind of embarrassed about this, but I'd really like to get to know you. It seems men are less fussy. Women chatting up guys were 100% successful with the opening line, "Hi." If only picking up chicks was as easy for this bird. But not even the best efforts of the lonely kakapo can compare with the determination of the animal that's number 1 in the countdown.
Number 1.
The most extreme lovers in the countdown can be found in the forests of Australia. Courtship is a deadly game if you're a spider. This is a male St. Andrew's cross spider. And the love of his life is big, powerful, and hungry. He has to take courtship extremely seriously if he wants to stay alive. Keeping well out of biting distance, he plucks out a love song on the strands of her web. If he's lucky, she'll see him as a potential mate and not a meal. It seems to have worked. She's wrapped him in a loving embrace for the moment. But as he mates with her, she's preparing a nasty surprise. She uses that sheet of silk to wrap her food. Male spiders are number 1 in the countdown because they risk life and limb for love. This male succeeded and probably thinks himself lucky that he only lost 1 leg in the process. While most males won't take the extreme risks of the spider, some animals do go a little crazy when they're in love. When we meet someone special, we're under the influence of a love drug.
Hey, boy, you're so extreme. Come upstairs, you never
The symptoms we associate with love are actually physiological changes that start in our brain. At the start of a relationship, the brain produces a chemical called phenylethylamine, or PEA. This is a natural amphetamine that stimulates the nervous system like a jolt from a triple espresso. PEA travels down the nerves to produce the symptoms of lovesickness, like butterflies in the stomach and a pounding heart. Sweaty palms and the nervous jitters. But not even the most lovesick human would go to the extreme lengths of a spider. That's because the most extreme lover in the countdown is the red-backed spider. This femme fatale is infamous throughout Australia for her poisonous bite. But she holds a deadly attraction for her puny mate. He may be small, but this male is number 1 in the countdown because he really puts his life on the line. His courtship begins with an athletic backflip, which puts his bottom right in front of her enormous jaws. This is extreme bravery, because the femme fatale's love bite is full of venom. He's using his own body as a distraction so that he can mate with his hungry lover. And then, before the female's poison can work, the male tears himself free of her deadly embrace. The female just waits and licks her fangs. She knows that this half-eaten, henpecked mate will always limp back to her. He climbs straight back in the saddle and somersaults into position. This time, there's no escape. He dies so that his lover gets a good meal to nourish the eggs he's just fertilized. No wonder the spider is #1 in our countdown of extreme lovers. For when it comes to loving, the redback spider really is the most extreme.
We think we're pretty smart, but are there Einsteins in the natural world? We're counting down the top 10 animals with the most extreme smarts and seeing how they compare to our best brains in the business. Discover that a little knowledge can be a dangerous thing when thinking's taken to the most extreme.
Earth is a planet of extremes. Extreme places. And extreme animals. But some animals are more extreme than others. Join us as we count down to find the most unusual and the most extraordinary on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 10.
Dogs are much more than man's best friend. They're number 10 in the countdown because dogs are smart enough to be man's best golf buddy. Dogs can understand up to 200 words and phrases, which makes them about as smart as the average 2-year-old, and a lot less of a handicap to play golf with. You can really count on dogs, and some of them can count too.
How many clothespins in the right hand? Hurry up, loud. How many clothespins in the right hand? Hurry up, loud. Hurry up, loud. All right, how many in the left hand? Hurry up.
The only thing this dog was counting on was a treat for getting the trick right. But scientists have discovered that dogs really do have a basic mathematical ability, and it's all thanks to their ancestor, the wolf. Because wolves live in large social groups, they need to know how many friends and enemies they have in the pack. That's why their brains are capable of some simple arithmetic. But when we domesticated the wolf, things changed a little. All breeds of domestic dog have smaller brains than the wolf, perhaps because life is so much easier out of the wild. And when it comes to thinking, sometimes size does matter. The brain of a beagle weighs less than 1/6 of a pound. Compare that to the size of the organ we do our thinking with. The 3 pounds of gray wrinkled jelly we call our brain is made up of 100 billion nerve cells called neurons. And all those neurons firing their electrochemical messages produce enough tiny bursts of electricity to power a light bulb.
Good boy, Sam. Sit nicely. Good boy.
Meet Fraser. His brain may not be very big, but handler Gloria Weeks relies on Fraser's intelligence and ability to learn. That's because Fraser is a guide dog. Acting as Gloria's eyes takes much more than just blind obedience. Fraser not only has to learn how to follow Gloria's commands, but also know when to disobey her. Using a life-saving skill known as intelligent disobedience, Fraser will refuse a forward command if doing so would put Gloria in danger. It's this creative intelligence that makes guide dogs streets ahead when it comes to thinking.
Number 9.
We're just waking up to the extreme intelligence of the animal that's number 9 in the countdown. Honeybees are smart, even though they've got a brain the size of a pinhead. We think we're clever because we invented languages to communicate. Well, bees are number 9 in the countdown because they've also invented a way of talking to each other about food. When a scout bee finds a particularly good food source, it races back to the hive with the news. The trouble is, bees can't speak, and in the darkness of the hive, they can't see either. That's why they've come up with a language of their own, and the language is dance. Imagine if we had to communicate like the honeybee. First of all, the scout bee has to attract the attention of her sisters. When the workers have gathered, she tells them there's food nearby with a little bee boogie. Scientists call this repeated pattern of movements the round dance. But if the food's a long way off, she's able to tell her sisters the exact location by breaking out the waggle dance. The angle of her waggle on the hive's dance floor corresponds to the angle between her food source and the sun. And the number of times she shakes her booty indicates just how far away the food is. All that remains is to show her sisters just what kind of food they're looking for. Hopefully, the waggle dance will not be coming to a nightclub near you. Scientists are seldom seen in nightclubs either, which has left them lots of time to decode the incredible dance of the honeybee. And they've even had time to invent a way to talk to bees in their own language. This mechanical bee dances beautifully, especially for a bug with no legs. But scientists discovered that the most important part of RoboBee is the nozzle that delivers a sample of nectar. Bees got very angry very quickly at any imposter that didn't throw up during the dance routine.
Number 8.
The next contender in our countdown of extreme smarts has to be clever to stay one jump ahead of the big bad wolf. No wonder pigs are number 8 in the countdown. And some of the cleverest pigs in the world live in Toledo, Oregon. These pigs have made themselves at home with Bob and Connie Precious. Their house is home to 11 fully house-trained, performing pigs. And the smartest of them all is Pigstachio.
Okay, Pigstachio. It's a paint a picture. Hey, now what are we going to paint today? I think it'd be very appropriate to paint the American flag. Okay, let's paint. Let's paint it on. That's good. Up and down. Up and down. Up and down. Up and down. Red on here now. Just come on. We do the flag.
While it may not look much like a flag to us, it's an impressive effort for a pig. Very few pigs on the planet paint with such skill or sign their work with a hoof print. But there's one extraordinary human who may not be able to write, but who's a genius when it comes to drawing. Meet 11-year-old Stephen Wiltshire. He has a mental age of 6 and severe learning disabilities, but he has one extraordinary talent. He can draw the most incredible pictures. Stephen is an autistic savant. He can draw incredibly accurate pictures from memory, and experts have trouble explaining how he does it. They suggest that because specific parts of his brain don't work properly, abilities in other areas have been unlocked. While Connie Precious may have unlocked the artistic talents of Pigstachio, wild pigs have to concentrate on using their brain to find food and stay out of trouble. Sometimes it's a case of think fast or die faster. Luckily, pigs are safe at Pigtasia, which means they're free to explore new ways of using their brain power and sharp reflexes.
Ready? Kick the ball. Kick the ball. Hurry up. And ham dunk it. Ham dunk it, Stassi. Yay! That was good.
It's amazing what you can teach a pig, especially if you know the way to his brain is through his stomach. Which is why you still get the feeling that Pigstachio'd rather eat the ball than ham dunk it.
Number 7.
Galloping in to number 7 in our countdown of extreme smarts is the horse. For scientists are discovering that when it comes to thinking, horses really do have something to celebrate. This horse is about to begin his daily workout, but the only muscle he's exercising is his brain, because he's being tested at the Equine Research Foundation in Aptos, California. So how do you find out what goes on inside a horse's head? Researchers have developed this system to discover if he can understand concepts such as large and small. Choose the small symbol and you get a tasty treat. This may look like a game, but researchers are discovering that horses are smarter than we thought. It seems that horses are thinking creatures that respond best to humans who acknowledge their minds and emotions. But one doctor already knew that. Who needs a complex system of symbols if you're Dr. Dolittle?
Could I learn, Dr. Manor?
I don't see why not. You're quite intelligent.
I want you to teach me everything you know. I could talk to the animals.
Back at the Equine Research Foundation, they can talk to the animals with sign language. It may not be a great conversation, but by discovering how horses learn, researchers are doing a lot to narrow the communication gap. All the proof you really need about equine intelligence comes straight from the horse's mouth.
Operator, get me Washington, D.C., Treasury Department. Yeah, I'll pay.
Number 6.
In northern Japan, you have to be smart to survive the winter. And in this forest, animals don't get any smarter than the snow monkey. It's number 6 in the countdown because, just like humans, snow monkeys are famous for their ability to learn. Imagine if you were stuck in the forest and there was a blizzard coming. Would you find shelter in a tree or do the intelligent thing and head to the bottom of the hill for a nice hot bath? Years ago, this female snow monkey called Takiwa is thought to have seen people bathing in these hot pools. Unlike any monkey before her, the young Takiwa decided to join them. Now the whole troop has learned to keep warm in the pool, in a classic case of monkey see, monkey do. It's this giant intellectual leap that pushed the snow monkey to number 6 in the countdown. After all, it's not easy coming up with totally original ideas, even if you're the most famous thinker in the world. In Germany in the late 1800s, one couple feared their child may have been mentally challenged because he didn't speak until he was 3. He did spend a lot of time building with blocks and spent hours and hours solving puzzles. Later in life, he'd say, "It's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with problems longer." That problem child was none other than Albert Einstein, who, relatively speaking, had the most brilliant mind of the 20th century. Snow monkeys are number 6 in the countdown because, just like Einstein, they can occasionally come up with amazing conceptual leaps, even if sometimes youngsters can get a little too clever for their own good. But if there's one thing a snow monkey likes more than a hot bath, it's being groomed. Grooming is not only the social glue that binds the troop together, but it's a practical way of getting rid of parasites, like lice and ticks. And some monkeys like grooming so much, they get a little carried away. Perhaps the expanse of fur on a deer is irresistible for monkeys that love to groom. But there's one super smart monkey that's found another use for the ticks it finds on deer. If you'd like to be groomed yourself, but you don't have any ticks of your own, you can borrow some. This monkey has learned that by adopting a deer tick, he can give his friends hours of fun combing through his fur. Coming in at number 5 in the countdown of extreme smarts are birds so brainy, they're scary.
They're coming! They're coming!
Of all the birds in the world, crows and ravens scare us the most. We distrust them because they're very, very clever. Crows are number 5 in the countdown because they're smart enough to use our own technology to crack some tricky problems. This crow likes eating walnuts, but breaking open the hard shell's a real problem. You can try dropping the walnut onto a hard road, but this is still a little hit or miss. So the crows figured out how to use some 4-wheeled nutcrackers. The crow is number 5 in the countdown because it's clever enough to drop its dinner on a crosswalk. Only when it gets the green light will it safely secure its snack. But crows aren't the only creatures with calculating minds. Meet human calculator Rudiger Gamm. He's taught himself how to carry out stupendous calculations in his head.
362,797,056.
To try and find out how Rudiger could make such extraordinary calculations, scientists put him through a brain scanner. They compared his scan to those of people with average mathematical ability. When calculating, most people use the parts of the brain shown in red, but Rudiger uses the extra areas marked in green. He's using the parts of the brain that most of us reserve for visualization and long-term memory.
What's 99 to the power of 14? When I calculate, I see these numbers like in a
computer screen. I visualize the numbers, and with these numbers I can calculate. 8, 6, 8, 7, 4, 5, 6, 0, 1.
Crows may not be able to calculate like Rudiger. After all, it took him 6 years of practice to become a champion thinker. But it's amazing what these intelligent birds can learn to do with the incentive of a little food. No wonder the crow hates being typecast as just another featherbrain.
Number 4.
Our next contender is definitely well-armed and dangerous. It may look terrifying, but the octopus isn't attacking the diver. It's just collecting data. That's because each tentacle has a mind of its own, and every sucker can taste and touch. By covering the diver in this sensitive embrace, the octopus is just trying to learn as much as it can. It's number 4 in the countdown because its central nervous system is so big and so complex, it rivals that of many birds and fish. In fact, the octopus is one of the fastest learners in the world. It has to be, according to Dr. Carol Hopper from the Waikiki Aquarium.
Octopuses are incredibly bright. Consider this. Here's an animal that may have a lifespan as short as 12 to 16 months. When it hatches, there's no parents to teach it. It has to learn everything on its own. How to hunt, how to avoid predators, how to control the thousands of color cells in its skin, the 8 arms, and all of the sensory structures. That all has to be integrated by the brain. That's an amazing amount of work to do, of learning to do in such a short time.
The baby octopus may be a quick learner, but measuring its intelligence is difficult. If it was a human, we could use an IQ test. And if it scored well, it could become a member of a very special club. More than 48,000 Americans belong to Mensa, a club that celebrates the cerebral. You need an above-average IQ just to get in the door. To join famous smart people like actress Gina Davis and author Isaac Asimov, you have to score in the top 2% of the general population on a standardized intelligence test.
Thank you for coming to Mensa's supervised test session. Please let me know.
To get into Mensa, you need an IQ of at least 130. While only 1 in 50 Americans has what it takes, there are good reasons for wanting to join, according to Mensa's Marla Whipple.
There are several reasons why people join Mensa. One is for the social interaction, to be around other people who get their jokes. One is for intellectual stimulation, to be with people who they can talk about ideas and thoughts that they don't normally have a chance to talk about. And another is to attend the intellectual activities and events that Mensa has.
So, is it possible to design a Mensa test for an octopus? All you need is a tasty treat placed inside a glass bottle, seal it with a cork, and give it to a hungry 8-armed genius. octopus may be the mollusk equivalent of a Mensa member, but it's still not the smartest animal in the sea.
Number 3.
Diving into number 3 in our countdown of extreme smarts is the dolphin. Off the coast of Brazil, the dolphin's big brain brings it up close and personal with fishermen. But the catch of the day isn't dolphin, it's mullet that the dolphins have herded close to shore. Like underwater sheepdogs, the dolphins even signal to the fishermen when to cast their nets. And in return, the dolphins get to eat the mullet missed by the net. It's a really clever trick that humans and dolphins have been practicing in Brazil for several hundred years. But learning this behavior is no problem for the animal with the closest thing to human intelligence in the sea. Like us, dolphins are highly sociable animals. They learn by playing games, and one of their most popular sports is seaweed soccer. Scientists working with dolphins have discovered that these skillful swimmers are so smart, they may even be able to recognize themselves as individuals. This kind of intelligence is only seen in great apes and humans. But it isn't easy trying to figure out just how smart dolphins are. In the past, some people have tried to measure intelligence by taking a close look at the skull. Back in 1798, a Viennese physician came up with the pseudoscientific idea that you could read a human's personality from feeling bumps on the skull. It was called phrenology and became hugely popular around the world. It was said that a phrenologist felt the bumps on the head of a young man working in a grocery store. The phrenologist told the man he was in the wrong business. He should get out of the store and do something mechanical. The young man's name was Thomas Edison. Phrenology wouldn't be much use on dolphins because their brains are so different to ours. That's because the bulk of their brain is devoted to processing sound waves.
These two tanks are connected with hydrophones and speakers. Listen to this exchange between Doris, a bottle-nosed female, in one tank, and Dash, a bottle-nosed male, in the other. The scientists have been keeping records on whether the male or female dolphin talks more. As expected, their report showed the female Doris is by far the gabbiest.
Today, scientists believe that dolphins are making all that noise not to talk, but to hunt. The dolphin actually makes far more noises than we can hear. It fires off ultrasonic clicks and whistles like a submarine using sonar. By listening to the echoes of these ultrasonic sound waves, it can build up a sonar picture of the world around it. The beauty of ultrasound is that when it contacts a fish, some of the ultrasonic waves can pass right through the skin. The beam may then reflect back off the bones or guts, resulting in a number of different echoes. Some scientists believe that these echoes are processed in the dolphin's brain to form a 3D image of the fish, which explains why the dolphin's brain is so big. It takes a lot of brain power to be able to hunt by ultrasound. It's feeding time at the Honolulu Zoo, but this is no ordinary dinner party. Part of the zoo's enrichment program is to turn lunchtime into a lesson in problem solving. But number 2 in the countdown definitely won't starve. For chimpanzees can sometimes be just as smart as us. But that's hardly surprising, given that we share up to 98% of our genetic material. To see just how similar our brains are, you just have to look at our babies. Just like a human infant, a newborn chimp learns to recognize its caregiver's voice and responds with a look and a smile. When they're 3 months old, both human and chimp babies will analyze new objects by placing them in their sensitive mouths. After 6 months, the chimpanzee is actually more aware of its environment than its human counterpart. It's only when they get to their first birthday that the chimpanzee starts getting left behind in the race for human consciousness. Most chimpanzees will be lucky to reach the intellect of a 4-year-old human. Hardly surprising, since even a 4-year-old has a brain 3 times the size of a chimp. But chimpanzees are still clever enough to copy the most important human skill of all. They make tools. Wild chimpanzees produce over 20 different types of tools. This hammer and anvil may look simple to us, but it can take up to 6 years to develop the proper technique. That's about the same time it takes us to go through graduate school. But one chimp is so smart, he goes to university.
Okay, Kanzi's ready.
Kanzi is at Georgia State University. And while he may never graduate, he is clever enough to understand and respond to human language using signs on a special keyboard.
Find Austin. Austin.
Hey, look. Austin, good job.
So, having found a way to communicate, what does a chimpanzee like to talk about? Well, according to his research buddies, Kanzi's favorite subjects center around games and food. Kanzi may be top of his class, but he's still only number 2 on the countdown of extreme smarts.
Okay, can you put the apples on the fire?
Soaring in to number 1 in our countdown of extreme smarts is the parrot. This is a kea, a mountain parrot that lives in the southern Alps of New Zealand. So what's so smart about this bird? As a part of an international test of animal IQ, the kea was challenged with a 7-stage puzzle. To get the food, it had to pull levers, push buttons, turn handles, and pull out a wooden cart. Up against the best brains in the animal kingdom, the parrot couldn't wait to get started. In a little over a minute, the parrot won the food and the competition. But the cleverness of IKEA comes as no surprise. The parking lots of ski fields and their mountain homes are full of similar 7-stage puzzles. And Kia just love the chance to work things out. Or off. In these mountains, it's the Kia's playful curiosity that gives them the edge. That's how they discovered that shearwater burrows contain nutritious meals. Unfortunately, a young Kia also has to learn that making an omelet isn't as easy as it looks. Thanks to a remarkable brain and a beak like a Swiss Army knife, the Kia can crack even this puzzle. But when it comes to smart parrots, one really stands out from the flock. Meet Alex, the resident bird brain at the University of Arizona, where he's worked with Dr. Irene Pepperberg for more than 20 years.
How many green? Block. 4. Good boy. What matter? Paper. Paper. Good boy. Okay, what matter? Whoa. Whoa, very good boy.
This remarkably clever parrot is estimated to have the problem-solving skills of a 6-year-old child. And all this with a brain the size of a walnut. That's why the parrot is #1 in our countdown of extreme smarts. For when it comes to thinking, the parrot really is the most extreme. Some people bite off more than they can chew, but they're no match for the biggest, baddest biters in the natural world. We're counting down the top 10 most extreme biters in the animal kingdom and comparing them to your dentist's worst nightmares. Stand by for the tooth, the whole tooth, and nothing but the tooth when biting's taken to the most extreme.
Earth is a planet of extremes. Extreme places. And extreme animals. But some animals are more extreme than others. Join us as we count down to find the most unusual and the most extraordinary on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 10.
Flying in to number 10 is an animal that really gets under your skin. Meet the mosquito, the smallest and deadliest creature in the countdown. You can't escape from this flying bloodhound because it tracks us down by following the most minute traces of carbon dioxide from our breath. The mosquito is the mother of all biters, because it's only the female that uses her amazing proboscis to suck our blood. It's human blood that nourishes mosquito eggs, so that's why the female has the most complicated biting apparatus in the countdown. It's a combination of Swiss Army knife, hypodermic needle, and vacuum cleaner. But once she's tapped into a blood vessel, our problems have only just begun. For traveling in her saliva are some deadly hitchhikers. And that's why the mosquito's number 10 in the countdown. Her bite can be lethal. But it took us a while to make the connection. 100 years ago, the scourge of the American military was yellow fever, or yellow jack.
Yellow Jack!
I'm a sick man.
Yellow Jack!
An army doctor thought the disease was spread by mosquitoes. But to prove it, he needed some human guinea pigs.
You've come to volunteer.
Do you men know the risk?
Gentlemen, I salute you.
Sure enough, once the volunteers were bitten, they picked up the parasite transmitted by mosquito spit. But yellow jack is only one of the diseases spread by the mosquito's deadly bite. The queen of the killers is malaria. Even today, malaria spread by mosquitoes will kill 1 out of every 17 people on Earth. The mosquito may be deadly, but its bite barely scratches the surface of our extreme countdown. Coming up next is an animal so tough, it can chew through concrete.
Number 9.
To find number 9 in the countdown, Oregon zookeeper Jay Haight has to pull out all the stops.
You can see him actually run through the opening here. Gotta give him time to climb. Here he goes. Check him out by now. He ought to be coming down. And there he goes. Okay, there's only one way out now. Pop this open. And in he goes.
Meet the naked mole rat. It's a hairless rodent that spends its life beneath the plains of Africa building tunnels with its teeth. It's number 9 in the countdown because it needs a jaw-dropping mass of muscle. The muscles on a human body make up nearly half our body weight. The biggest muscles are attached to our legs and arms. To chew our food, we move our jaw using only about 1% of our muscle mass. But imagine if we were like the naked mole rat. If we spent our lives tunneling with our teeth, our jaw muscles would make up 1/4 of our muscle mass. buck-toothed beauties are an orthodontist's nightmare. But naked mole rat moms don't lose any sleep over their offspring's overbite, unlike humans.
Don't good-looking teeth add a lot to Dorothy's smile? Doesn't Jerry look healthy and happy? And what about Eleanor? Yes, everyone is thinking about his teeth this morning. The nurse has come to talk about dental health. Not everyone has such healthy teeth. Look at Sam. Sam has never taken very good care of his teeth. Judy's teeth are not growing in right. She needs dental assistance too. Perhaps a set of braces like Tom's.
Today, Tom and Judy would join an estimated 5 million Americans of all ages that are braced for better teeth. But the only thing this naked mole rat's braced for is action. He's got concrete reasons for liking his teeth, just the way they are.
If I were to drop him right now, given enough time, he'd actually chew through the cement of the floor down here. So these chambers are specially constructed with acrylic, and then some steel mesh, and then some material known as hydrostone. And the object here is to keep them from chewing through the hydrostone into the steel mesh, because then you have a nightmare for chamber repair. As you can see, they're a little on the feisty side.
And a feisty mole rat will even bite the hand that feeds him.
Little bigger. Won't be the first time, won't be the last. Too far from my heart to kill me.
It's just another casualty to add to the list of people injured by the most extreme biters on the planet.
Number 8.
Slithering into our countdown of extreme biters is the snake. Every year, over 7,000 Americans have close encounters of the venomous kind. And on average, 15 of these will be fatal.
This is Rattlers, a tale of terror. This is Rattlers. What a way to die.
We die because venomous snakes bite with teeth shaped like hypodermic needles. And in the Australian outback are the worst biters of all. Snakes are number 8 in the countdown because the bite of an inland taipan delivers enough potent venom to kill 500,000 mice, or 100 people. Even baby taipans are lethal. But even natural-born biters occasionally bite off more than they can chew. Luckily, bite-sized portions are not far away. Although only 10% of snakes are venomous, It pays to stay well clear of any animal that bites first and ask questions later. But at this extreme snake show in Thailand, one man bites back. But without venom, even our best bite can't match the horror of snake bite. No wonder snakes strike fear into people around the world.
Number 7.
Sydney, Australia is home to the next contender in our countdown of extreme biters. Crawling in to number 7 is the funnel web spider. The funnel web strikes like lightning. Those enormous fangs inject paralyzing venom deep into their prey. And they're strong enough to drive through a lizard's skull. But their fearsome fangs are no use when it comes to eating. That's why funnel webs have a different way of digesting their dinner. Imagine if we ate like a funnel web spider. A pair of fangs would be great for killing food, but useless for chewing. So we'd have to make ourselves a little liquid lunch. Funnel webs throw up special enzymes that turn their meal into a soup that's simply sucked up. The problem is that funnel webs don't eat hamburgers and don't always stay out in the garden. The funnel web is one of the world's most dangerous spiders. It can sink its fangs through your fingernail and inject a poison that can be lethal, especially for children. In the last 80 years, over a dozen people have been killed by funnel webs. But at the Australian Reptile Park, some spiders are helping save lives. Mary Rayner has one of the most extreme jobs on Earth. She milks killer spiders. Funnel webs are so aggressive that when provoked, venom drips from their fangs. All you need is a steady hand and nerves of steel to suck up the poison into a glass straw. The venom then gets used in the manufacture of an antidote to the spider's deadly bite. At least the funnel web spider no longer has our fate in its fangs. Unlike our next contender.
Number 6.
Life on the plains of Africa is as hectic as any city sidewalk, but this crosswalk is patrolled by a cold-blooded killer. Jaywalkers don't stand a chance. The crocodile is number 6 in the countdown because those jaws slam shut like a steel trap. Powered by enormous muscles, the crocodile's bite strength has been estimated at 3,000 pounds per square inch. That's more than 10 times stronger than the average human bite. That means all 60 cone-shaped teeth are driven into flesh with the force of a sledgehammer. Once a crocodile has its teeth in you, it's almost impossible to escape. Which is why some people hope their bite's as strong as a crocodile's.
Here are the Iron Jaw roller skaters. He holds her with his teeth alone.
Strongmen have always been able to pull huge crowds with their teeth. And they pulled everything from planes to ocean liners. Even a crocodile would be proud of pulling a 320-ton ship, a record-breaking 20 feet. But most crocodilians have smaller fish to fry. A lineup of these massive jaws and teeth is a terrifying sight. For more than just fish are on the menu. Any living thing that enters the water is a potential meal. Unless, of course, you're...
Gordon Scott, 6 foot 3 inches of muscular manhood as Tarzan, as strong and quick as the beasts of his jungle.
Tarzan was lucky. In waters around the world, each year crocodiles claim an estimated 2,000 lives. Crocs can hold their breath for up to an hour, which means they can swim right into the shallows in front of you. When a croc attacks, usually there's no warning. You'll never know what hit you. Crocs even fought in World War II. The British in Burma had the Japanese army surrounded on an island. 1,000 men tried to escape through croc-infested swamps. After the crocodiles attacked, only 20 made it out alive. Even today in Australia's Northern Territory, cunning crocs associate visitors with food. But these crocs have to dance for their dinner. With these extreme biters, it really does pay to keep your hands inside the vehicle at all times.
Number 5.
No one's safe from the next contender in our countdown of extreme biters.
Watch out! They may be hovering over you. Or you. Or you! Danger stalks through the night. No one is safe. Bark of the vampire.
Insatiable blood-sucking biters really do exist. Which is why the vampire bat creeps in to number 5 in the countdown. Fall asleep in Central and South America, and you're instantly on the menu. The tricky part's getting the blood without waking the seal. That's why these extreme biters have a numbing anesthetic in their saliva. Wouldn't it be great to have the bat's pain-killing spit the next time you're at the dentist? The vampire doesn't have to worry about the dentist because it has fewer teeth than any other bat. Who needs to chew their food when there's a specially grooved tongue to lap up their bloody meal? The next day, there's little evidence that the bat's been feeding. If only Dracula was as subtle as a real vampire. But then Dracula's not the only human with a distinctive bite. Dentists can easily identify patients because our 32 teeth leave a bite that's as unique as a fingerprint. Forensic dentistry can catch criminals and identify bodies. And people have been polishing these skills for centuries. During the Revolutionary War, an American general by the name of Joseph Warren was killed at Bunker Hill. His body was buried in an unmarked grave. A year later, it was decided to dig him up for a proper burial. But the search for the dead general came to a dead end because no one could tell the various bodies apart. Finally, a Boston dentist identified the fallen hero by his distinctive dental work. The world's first forensic dentist had already galloped into the pages of history. For dentist Paul Revere is more famous for writing like a bat out of hell. Vampire bats are also famous because these extreme biters will sink their teeth into any large mammal. Of course, with their anesthetic spit, we never notice that bats find us finger-licking good.
Number 4.
We love dogs. You can find a dog in more than a third of all American homes. Today, in the United States alone, the dog population exceeds 50 million. But man's best friend has a dark side. Dogs are number 4 in the countdown because sometimes their bite is much, much worse than their bark. Each year, more than 4.7 million Americans are bitten by dogs. Domestic dogs are now found in so many homes that each year you've got a 1 in 50 chance of being bitten by a dog. And sometimes those bites can be deadly. In the United States alone, it's estimated dogs will kill 17 people. That's more deaths than from the bites of grizzlies, gators, and spiders combined. But even the most extreme biters can get help at this practice in Manhattan Beach, California. For veterinary dentist Dr. David Nielsen has found a way to take the bite out of some canine criminals.
The way we deal with dogs that have a bad reputation as a biter is obviously first we go through dog trainers, and if they actually basically call a class 5 would be a bite where you actually draw blood. And their rule of thumb is that if a dog is bitten that hard, they can't be trained to not bite. It's like asking a person to never get angry. I mean, it's impossible. And so what we do is that actually we'll take off the canine right at about this level, halfway below the level of the incisors, because the way a dog bites is that canine tooth tears. And so you take the dog from being a biter into a pincher, but psychologically it changes them because they just all of a sudden are much more mellow. We've done this on a number of dogs and without problems afterwards, so it's kind of a neat way to save their lives.
Thanks to Dr. Nielsen, now even the most extreme biters can dream of being both man and woman's best friend.
Excellent dog. What a good dog.
Number 3.
The next contender in our countdown of extreme biters could come from a time long ago. Back then, some movie makers imagined that big, scary reptiles could really spoil a date. And there were more man-eating monsters than you could poke a stick at. But Hollywood didn't have to invent these giant reptiles, because one loathsome lizard already exists. Falling in to number 3 in the countdown is the Komodo dragon. On remote islands of Indonesia, these giant lizards reign supreme. Komodo dragons are number 3 in the countdown because just one bite is all it takes to bring down an animal the size of a buffalo. Dragons have the world's worst halitosis. Inside its mouth, festering meat trapped in the Komodo's teeth turns its saliva into a bacterial broth. Just one bite is enough to cause a fatal infection. And then, it's feeding time. Komodo dragons have more than 60 teeth, and all of them are as sharp and serrated as steak knives. Its teeth are almost as deadly as the bacteria in its septic saliva. But then human mouths are also full of bacteria. The bacteria may not be deadly, but they do cause the most common disease in the world, tooth decay. Our teeth are under attack by billions of bacteria that grow in a layer called plaque. When we eat sugary foods, so do the bacteria. They turn the sugars to acids, and acids eat into tooth enamel. But our body can fight back. Our spit is full of minerals that replace the ones dissolved away by plaque acids. Each day, you produce about a quart of saliva, which means in your lifetime, you make enough saliva to fill a swimming pool. That's more than 6,500 gallons of spit. Chewing gum is a great way to get the saliva glands pumping. But as well as fighting bacteria, chewing's been shown to relieve tension. So it's no wonder that during World War II, soldiers chewed 6 times more gum than civilians. Even now, Americans chew their way through more than 50 million sticks of gum every day. Komodo dragons and their diseased drool have no need for bubble gum. But even their mighty mouth is no match for our next contender.
Number 2.
In Kenya, this peaceful pond is home to the hippopotamus. They look so graceful that it's hard to imagine why hippos should be number 2 in the countdown. But making eye contact with a hippo could be the last thing you ever do. The hippopotamus is number 2 in the countdown because any trespasser will quickly learn that it's one murderous mammal. At the Honolulu Zoo, keeper Mary Rosolowicz knows exactly how dangerous hippos can be.
Hippos kill more people in the wild than any other animals, including like lions and tigers and bears, all the ones that you think are really dangerous. They're very territorial. They don't eat people, they just chew them up. They can open their jaw to 150 degrees, and the males have their lower canines get up to 20 inches long, and they're razor sharp, and they can kill each other with a single bite.
And it's this extreme bite that puts the hippo in at number 2 in the countdown. A male hippo has a mouth that opens more than 4 feet wide. But there is one human hippopotamus. How would you like to smoke 155 cigarettes at the same time? Kids, don't try this at home. But a big mouth comes in handy when it's time for a dental checkup. Not that hippos need much more than a quick fish floss. In fact, their teeth are so strong, they inspired the earliest dentists. There was a time when false teeth were crafted from hippo ivory. In fact, it was a hippopotamus that gave George Washington his ring of confidence. Porcelain teeth were an improvement, but they still didn't have the same shine as natural teeth. So, in 1942, they mixed in uranium to add a real glow, and to fill the mouth with more than 4 times the normal level of radiation. They stopped adding uranium in the 80s, to the relief of 32 million Americans whose teeth go out at night. And even though they're number 2 in our countdown of extreme biters, it will be a relief to most hippos that these days, their teeth don't end up in the mouth of a president.
Number 1.
The most extreme biting animal in the countdown lives in the sea. But it's not what you expect. For when it comes to biting, what could be better than Jaws? Surely nothing could compete with the great white shark. great white shark is a bloodthirsty biter that could easily be number 1 in the countdown. After all, it's always on the lookout for something to sink its teeth into. And they go through teeth like nothing on Earth. That's because the shark is constantly replacing old teeth with newer, sharper versions. Wouldn't it be nice if we weren't quite so attached to our teeth? Then pulling teeth wouldn't be such a giant job. All 32 adult teeth are firmly anchored in our jaws. Our teeth are meant to last us a lifetime, but then we don't put as much strain on our teeth as a shark. The average human bite strength is only about 300 pounds per square inch. Compare that to a shark. Their jaws are estimated to generate forces 100 times more powerful. We'd go through a few teeth as well if our bite strength topped the scales at 40,000 pounds per square inch. But not even the great white shark could take on the U.S. nuclear submarine fleet and win. The number 1 most extreme biter in the countdown earned its place because back in the 1970s, it forced a nuclear submarine to return to base. Something attacked the layer of neoprene rubber covering the sensitive sonar dome in the bow. Careful studies showed that the submarine had been hit by something that removed a perfect plug of rubber, 2 inches wide and 2.5 inches deep. It looked like the attacker had come straight from the kitchen. The plugs in the neoprene rubber looked as though they had been sliced by a cookie cutter. And that's just what happened. For these teeth belong to the most extreme biter in the countdown, the cookie cutter shark. It's number 1 because, for its size, the cookie cutter has the largest teeth of any shark in the sea. But it doesn't normally eat submarines. Nobody's ever filmed what goes on far beneath the waves. But scientists know that the cookie cutter, one of the smallest sharks in the world, hunts the biggest animals on the planet. Whales, not nuclear submarines, are the normal diet of the cookie cutter shark. And that's what makes this biter number 1 in the countdown. It feeds by sinking those incredible teeth into the side of a whale and then lifting out a cookie-shaped piece of flesh before the whale, or submarine, knows what hit it. No wonder then, when it comes to biting, the cookie cutter shark really is the most extreme.